chapter 3 or
Yeah,
chapter
chapter 4 actually, no?
4
We
actually, no?
discussed, yeah, we discussed chapter 3 last week. So
Last time.
yeah, I have already finished my chapter 4, but I need to check it, turn it in and some stuff. I'll upload it by today or most latest tomorrow.
Okay. So today we'll discuss about the chapter 4 data analysis, and so I don't want to delay you. So we'll start now. Janit has also joined. Good morning, Janit.
Good morning.
Right, so we'll just discuss about the chapter 4 and what needs to happen in chapter 4. So let me start off by sharing my screen with our famous your cohort 9, no? Cohort 9 ke All right, let's have a look at what you need to do for the data analysis now. Janit, how about you, your submissions? I got only the questionnaire.
Both. I sent you both the questionnaire and the methodology. That part as well.
In Devari, the methodology also has been submitted. I didn't see that. Anyway, let's see.
Shall I email it to you?
No, have you put it on the Moodle?
No, not in the model. So ask her to share it with you.
Okay. Right, so let's just jump into what is required here. Let me pull out something here. I'll share my screen. Today, why is my Here we go. Okay. Now, if we go through what you have to do for this chapter 4. Now, remember, we have done the chapter 1 introduction to the whole business issue and the research question, and we've come through that part where we know what the aim of the research is, we know what we are doing in terms of the objectives of the research, we've designed the research questions, and we come to the rationale. Then when you went into chapter 2, you're doing the literature review, and the literature review helps you to establish, okay, this is the literature that is already there around the subject. This is areas where you can explore. And then the whole idea is at the end of the literature review, you give a conceptual framework. This is how you're going to look at the variables and the connection between the variables. When you come to the third chapter, and in that chapter, you're looking at what your methodology is according to Saunders' onion. There you tell how you made those choices. This is the way I made the choices. I'm consciously making these choices in how I do my research. Then you have a structure for your quantitative study and the qualitative study. Your intention was to submit the questionnaire so that you can collect the data, then start the interviews so that you again collect data. And now, actually, by now, you should have all the data. Okay. Because it takes some time to collect the data, and at this moment what is required is that you analyze the data and you tell about your findings. Now, chapter 4 is more about analysis of the findings. Okay, you can see here that it's a 3,500 words, and what you're required to do is tell exactly what you found. Now, when you're telling, you need to present it in a way that people can get some meaning from the data. Now, if you just do a survey and you collect information, it's just a bunch of numbers. What do those numbers tell us? What does it tell us about the people that took part in the survey? What does it tell about their answers? Then in the interviews also, how many people were interviewed? What were their responses to specific questions? So if you ask the same question from, say, 4 people, how did they respond? So it's important to do this analysis part in a way that you give the reader, meaning the examiner and anybody reading your report, a good picture of what you collected. All right. So if you look at this, let's start with the qualitative and then we'll go to the survey. In your IBF, you are writing about 3,500 words. All right. So when you're doing a 3,500 word report, paragraph, or sorry, not a paragraph, a chapter on this, how do you structure it? The bulk of your writing should be for the analysis of the interviews and the analysis of the quantitative survey and the discussion findings. All right. So put your bulk of writing into those 3 areas, and then see, you can see here, this part should be at least 2,000 words. Discussion of findings should be 2,000 words. So right away, mark it that you need to put 2,000 words into your discussion. Why I say that is, in the other 2 parts, what you're doing is you're presenting the data. What is more important is how you discuss the data in your chapter 4.4. So if you put aside 2,000 words there, you're left with about 1,500 words for the other 3 parts. You leave aside about 100 words for your introduction. Okay, then you have 1,400 words, which is 700 each for 4.2 and 4.3. Is that clear? Is that all right, Malisha? Janit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how you structure it. 700 words each for 4.2, 4.3, and 100 words for the introduction. And remember, the bulk of your writing, 2,000 words, should be in your discussion of findings. That's where you need to pay the most attention. So remember, introduction, like all the other chapters, you're giving an introduction. what are you going to cover in this chapter and the structure. So you tell that you're initially discussing the interviews, and then you will be presenting the survey data, and your final subchapter will be discussing the findings against your conceptual framework. Remember how they word it here. Okay. And look at what they say. If you look at this sentence itself, use this section to tie everything together from the findings. You're tying everything together means you're taking the findings from the qualitative, you're taking the findings from the quantitative, and bring it together. Cross analysis, combining questions together. That means if you had a particular response to a question you asked somebody during the interview, what did your survey questions reveal about that similar question? Okay. What did the larger number of people say, and how is it similar or different to what the interviewee said? Also remember that you're bringing your literature review and conceptual framework to show your findings, how it aligns with existing knowledge or how it contributes to knowledge, contradicts it. Now, there are two parts here. When you did your literature review, you said this is the current state of the literature around your problem. Now you got your real world data. This is where at a master's level, what is required is you take this real world data and you see how far or how close it is to the literature. That is what you're saying. Either it contributes to knowledge, meaning it enhances, yes, someone maybe many years ago found out something, and now the data also is confirming that part. Or your data may be something that is new, relevant for Sri Lanka. The previous literature that was written was more towards the Western world, or it could be towards a different industry, or it may not have covered your particular area of scope that you're doing. And if that is the case, then how does that contradict with what you have found? Okay. So remember, the important part is discussing the data, right? So these 2000 words are really important because this is where you're actually discussing your findings against the literature. So it could be two things. It can contribute or it can contradict. It can give a different enhanced view even. Say there are many things that can happen. One is that when you look at the data, it is confirming the past literature. Another way of looking at it is the data shows something different than what the previous data literature said. Third way is it is actually enhancing or further strengthening this. Okay, there might be a new variable that has come out. That variable is something that was not discussed earlier in the literature. So now you're presenting something new. So this is how it is contributing to knowledge. That is what it means by contributing to knowledge. You're enhancing the scope of knowledge that we now have on the subject that you are discussing. Okay. So it's very important that you do this part well. So pay a lot of attention how you bring in things. Say if you're asking a question in the survey, what were the similar responses or different responses you got from the interviewees? Okay. So presenting the data is something that you need to do well. Let us see how you're going to do the first part, the depth interviews. Now, remember, you have questions that you are asking during the interview. You can do this in several ways. Now, you can use a table. How do you use a table? Say there's a particular question you ask. I'm just taking something, not from your studies, maybe as just an example. Um, do you what change has digital literacy brought to the staff in your organization? Okay, say you're doing a study about the impact of digital literacy on the adoption of digital technology. And so the question you ask is, what changes do you observe in your staff that have gone through the digital literacy program. Now, when you ask a question like that, they will give certain statements. You record those statements. So then, in say the first person you interview has something to say. Second person might say something else. Some third will say something else. Fourth might say something that a previous person said. So how you can put that in a table is you put the question and you put the different people that you have interviewed as a you put a reference for them. Like say you can say A1, A2, A3, A4 or Q. Now you have Q1 here and you might say Q1 question 1 is this question, and then for the interviewees you say I1, I2, I3, I4 like that. Then what is that exact statement that that person gave? And remember, when you're doing that, we call those verbatim statements. Verbatim means you're not changing or altering what they said. You give it exactly the way they said it, the exact words. So that make it a small sentence. You don't have to write a paragraph in the table. So in your table, you will have the question, then you'll have the interviewee code, and then you'll have the answer that they gave. When you look at the table, then you will see for the same question, 4 different people, what were the responses they gave. That's one way of presenting it. Okay. So each question, you can show the responses by the respective people. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah. Another way of doing it, and say there are other ways also. Say, for example, you can put a diagram. How do you use a diagram in an interview? It's like this. You might identify certain words. Now, I know some of you in your methodology under the qualitative, you have said that you're going to do a certain way of coding. So that's a diagram that you can develop. You can use a table and then use the diagram. How do you do that? You put the question and then you say, this was the specific words that you say relate to that question. So taking that digital literacy, a person could have said a statement, and in that statement, one word that came out was ease. Ease. Another person could say comfort. Another person can say technical. Now, these are words that have come out for that same question. Now, when you code, what you're doing is you're taking that answer that they gave and you're finding out what does that code sort of correlate to in your survey questions. All right. So this could be relating to one of your variables. There can be a variable where you're talking about digital literacy and you're saying that one is ease of use. Okay. Or one is saying confidence of use. Right. So digital literacy has an impact on the confidence or on the ease. Then you correlate those words that you identified during the interview to those variables. When you do that, you're now integrating what they said, breaking it down into unique words which you identify. That is the coding that you do. And from those codings, you identify to which variable it correlates. That you can give in a diagram also, where you say these are the key words that were identified and how does it map to your variables. So you can do a nice diagram where you put your variables and you map these words to those respective variables. All right. So that's another thing that you can do. Then if you look at another way of doing it, in your discussion as you write it or as you talk about that particular question, you can use inverted commas, that means quotes, and quote a direct sentence the person said. All right. Normally when we do that, type it in italics like this. Okay. To show that it is something being said by somebody. And when you refer in the paragraph, you can say, and always remember, don't write out all the questions in your paragraphs. The shortcut that you should use is your questions will be part of the appendix. So you refer to it. And you can say for example, Q3 appendix and put in brackets appendix 5 or whatever the appendix. For Q3 appendix and in brackets appendix 5, I5 responded and put it in the italics and quotes. I felt at ease after the digital literacy program that I followed, right? I felt at ease. So you don't have to say the full thing. I felt at ease. So how you frame it is you say for Q2 dealing with, maybe I said Q3. So Q3, about confidence after attending a program on digital literacy, I too said, I feel at ease, right? And so then you're bringing that into the discussion, you're bringing that into the chapter. So even in your chapter 4.4, you're going to use the same method. You will link words they said, you will link phrases that they said, and you'll link it to the survey findings. So say for a particular question in the survey, you got a median rating or you got an average response of something, then you say for this question, there was an average response of this, which is reflecting in I3's response of I feel at ease. You see? So you might have a high correlation for confidence post program. So something like that, then you link it to what was said. Is that clear? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Malisha, you want to say something?
No, yeah, I said yes.
Okay. All right. Couldn't hear you. Right? All right. So then if you look at how you present interviews, remember, this is all words that people say. So now what we need to do is we have to codify that. And that's why we use a table to show the sentences or the responses. You can put a diagram that links it to your variables, and you can use verbatim comments. So the verbatim comment is, like I said, in that sentence with quotes, and you put it in italics so that people know that this is something that someone said. All right. And then you can comment on the findings, say in detail. When you're analyzing it, you can refer to a particular literature that supports what was said. And so when you do that, you say, for example, someone says, earlier I thought this was technical. It was too technical. Now I feel at ease. And then you relate it to a particular literature that talks about how understanding about digital, increasing or enhancing understanding about digital improves the adoption. And if there's a study, you refer to that and quote it there with the Harvard referencing. So your conversation is nicely linking all of these things together when you present it. Out of the two, the survey analysis is actually quite easy. It's the interviews that will be a bit of a challenge for you to really identify and for you to really identify and move with. Malaysia, now it's 10. It's close to 10. Anyway, this is going to be recorded, so you're free to go, okay?
Yeah.
And attend to that. These are important things. Go and attend to that, and you can catch up on the recording. And if there's anything, drop a message, and I'll
thank you so
revert
much.
to. Okay? Okay, take care.
Thanks.
Right. All right, so that, Janit, it's only you.
Okay.
All right. Right. So now if you look at how you analyze the survey findings, when you do the quantitative survey, there are many things that you can do, because if you have used a Google form or an MS form or any other survey app or survey engine, say like a Survey Monkey or something, automatically it will collate certain information and give you certain things that you can download. For example, on Google Forms and MS Forms, they generate pie charts for certain data elements. Say, for example, if you have done the demographic part at the beginning and you're collecting data about gender or age, automatically it will give you a pie chart or a bar chart which will show you that. So you can quickly download those, or you can anyway download an Excel sheet, and then in Excel itself, you can create your various tables and charts. it's important to graphically show this, okay? Not only write about it, because it enhances the quality of your report. So use tables, use graphs, use charts, use diagrams, because it gives a certain quality. When you are using tables and charts, be consistent. Use one simple style for the table and make that the same style throughout your report. Don't go to put different styles for different chapters and things like that. That doesn't, it breaks the consistency. All right. The other thing is, when you use pie charts or bar charts or um, any other any other graphic presentation, uh, just give me a minute. Say when you're using any type of graphic like that, another thing is the colors that you use. Now, when you do the report, you're going to digitally submit it as a Word and a PDF. Remember that colors also matter, how it contrasts the data. So say if you have a pie chart and you are trying to identify or trying to present um, key information, and you want to highlight a particular part of the pie chart. So you can do that by giving that a more dominant color, and the rest can be muted colors. Yeah. So you can do things like that, and try not to use too many colors. Keep it very simple. Keep it in a color range, in the same color range, and use gradients of those colors. So you can make darker to lighter shades. You can highlight the particular, say, variable or item or response that you want to, using different levels of highlighting the color. Okay. And be consistent in the colors that you use. If you use a particular set of colors for a pie chart or a bar chart, for all your pie charts and bar charts, use the same thing if it represents the same data also. Say, for example, you use data about male and female. One, you're checking gender. So you use a light blue for male and a pink for female, which are, we use normally cyan and magenta. That represents the two colors, cyan and magenta, which are the basic primary colors for blue and red. So when you use that in, say, a bar chart, and then in the next pie chart, you're talking about the age distribution of males and females, and you give the average age, then also for the male, use blue, female, use pink. Don't switch it. Uh, Because then what happens is, the person reading your report has a nice consistency that they can follow. And that's important when we present data, that we don't confuse. So if there's a particular variable you're talking about, that variable is in a particular color. Another variable will have a different color. So that's one way that you can actually give a higher quality to the report that you're presenting. Okay. Now, take each question and discuss the findings. That's important. So for every in your quantitative survey, when you take the question, it could be a set of questions also, not only one question. Say, for example, for a particular variable, you have a set of questions you're asking. So you can contrast the responses to all of those questions together. Okay. So in one bar chart, you could have, say, Q1, Q2, Q3, which are all relating to variable 1. And you give the median response for those three. You can do the correlations using SPSS also, and you can find more data points that you want to present. So even through SPSS, when you input the data and then you extract the information, you will have certain tables and charts that you can always present. Okay. And every table, chart, or diagram that you have, put a commentary. Commentary means a small writing about it. That is, you're going to say, okay, for this variable, question 1, the response was this. However, question this gave this response. This links to further a previous question or another question that you asked. And that these have a correlation. This has an impact on this. You can say things like that. And you can also comment about literature in that. My advice to you is, when you're doing this, these two subchapters, 4.1, 4.3, present the data, comment about it, discuss about it. You don't have to worry too much about referencing literature in these two parts. Mainly what is required is that you reference the data versus your, say for example, you can be referring to your methodology chapter. So you can refer to the methodology chapter and say that, say for example, now when you're doing the quantitative analysis, you have about 100 people who have responded. Now you intended sending this to 150. However, you sent it to 140 and only about 101 replied. That part you can bring into your survey analysis discussion 4.3. So you say the author, in accordance with chapter, in accordance with the survey survey intention, and then you can refer chapter 2, 2 dot whatever. Survey was submitted to 150 respondents, out of which intended to send to 150. However, only 140 received the survey. You can say there were maybe 10 who dropped out. Whatever happened, tell the actual what happened. And you received 101 responses which are which can be used. Because some people, you might have a situation where they have sort of done a response which means it's going to sort of skewer the results. For example, you find one person has responded with 5s for everything, or 1s for every question, or 3s for every question. When those come, those will be exceptions which you have to disregard. Otherwise, it takes your results to, to a, it can either give no result proper, or it will give it too much to one side. So you have to remove those, right? You remove those and you take the ones that you feel, not feel, but the ones that seem to be given with a with no such sort of bias to one side. All right. So you discuss about those things and you say that. And then the commentary can also be about, say, for example, out of the 150 that was sent, roughly you try to maintain a 50-50 gender population, or you may not be able to do 50-50. Maybe the survey was sent out to 60% male, 40% female. You got responses from about 38% of the female population. Sorry, not 38, say about 90% out of that 40%, which is good. From the male population, you may have got a little less. All right. So those are the things that you can comment about in your survey analysis. You can mention about what was the average age of the respondents, or how much maturity in the organization they have. Things like that you discuss and say the average age was this. The average tenure of work has been this. And so you give that nice commentary about the data. I'd like to think of it as a cricket commentator. So what they do is they put up something on the screen, which is a graph or a chart of some maybe a batsman's performance, a bowler's performance, or a country's performance, right? A team's performance. And they discuss it. They give a commentary about it. Do you know that so and so captured this number of wickets in this particular innings? Or they will say that the average score that the top order batsmen were able to contribute to the total was this. So the top 4 batsmen contributed an average of 25 runs each. So things like that. That's what you're doing in this. You're giving a commentary about the data. Okay. Is that clear, Janit?
Yep, great.
Oh, okay. So now we move on to the most important chapter. This chapter is the subchapter 4.4. Now in 4.4, give me 1 minute. In this chapter, give me a minute. Or what we call the subchapter. Here, what we are doing is we are actually.
Roshantha, I have a small question now.
Okay, go ahead, please.
No, when we're collecting qualitative data, I have still doubts. How do we bring those data in? Like, let's say that I have this question that I'll quote one of my questions that how would you describe the overall credit evaluation process at your bank or the department, branch or the department? So it's, let's say that they gave an answer saying that they are not particularly like happy with the evaluation process, but there are pros and cons, right? So
Okay.
if they give an answer like that, how do we bring that into the report?
Okay.
Actually, I don't have much that. I mean, there's no clarity on bringing in those qualitative.
So how are you going to do the interview? What was the plan? Because like I said earlier, you can record it, transcribe it, and then you need to take the transcription and analyze that word
Yes.
content. So is that how you're going to do it?
Yeah, I'm thinking to do it like that. And again, if I have a set of answers that fit into my research, will that be okay? Let's say that he gave an answer saying that he is not happy with the evaluation process. So I do a tick. I mean, I have those categories listed down. So
That's what we call coding. That's what we call coding. So it's like this.
Okay.
What happens is you have a question, right? And then that question is not a yes or no. However, the question, it won't get a yes or no answer. However, the question will generate certain content. That's what I was saying earlier. Say, I feel at ease or I'm comfortable. Those are words that you pick. So if a person says they are at ease, it relates to this variable. That's what you have to establish. So you have your variable, and for that variable, what would be a response that is a positive for that variable? What would be a response that is negative for that variable? Okay. And then if you get that particular in that person's response, if they come up with a particular word like that, but the fear is this. Now, if you have standard static words, and if they say that, what if they don't say that word? It has to relate to that word. That is what you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah. So
but
it's
if they
not
don't
that
give a response that relates to any of these answers that
variable.
I listed.
No, that's what I'm
variable.
saying. So if you have predetermined answers, right, you're going to be listening only for that. Don't do
I'll be
that.
expecting them to give that answer.
Because then see what is going to happen is you're going to miss what they actually say.
Okay.
Here you need to keep an open mind. Let them say, because when they talk, you will listen to them and you might then ask a further question. Okay, you said this. What made you say this? All right.
Okay.
And that's your second round of questions. If somebody says, instead of using the word, now I said feeling at ease. Now, without saying feeling at ease, I give a different explanation. I might say, to me, after going for that digital literacy program, now I'm doing all these things on my own. I used to get my son to help me transfer money and all that. Now I'm doing it on my own. I haven't said I feel at ease. Now in my questionnaire, if I had ease and I'm trying to tick that box, I'll never be able to tick it because I don't because the person has not responded with that word. However, you listen to what they say. Okay, when you say, and then you ask another question. When you say that you're doing all these things on your own, what is that like for you? Oh, well, now it's easy. I don't need help. Do you see?
Mm, mm, mm.
So then the person who is being interviewed is giving further a little bit more clarity to what they said.
So they are.
Now you get your.
I mean, we are kind of like giving them the. I mean, letting them to choose what we need, isn't it? I mean,
Not really. No, no. See, the thing is, your question has to be something that supports the variable. So you ask a question, it's more of a general question to generate content. You're not asking a yes or no question. Do you find it easy after going for this? Yeah, they say yes. That gives you nothing. You know why? Because it's too simple an answer. It's not letting the person think about what they went through. Okay? So your questions need to generate content, meaning generate a conversation.
okay.
That is how they are going to come up with what they really feel about this particular question or this particular subject that you're discussing. All right?
Okay. Okay.
They shouldn't be yes or no questions. Remember,
Right.
they can't, it should not be closed-ended questions.
All right.
Even if you look at your survey, it's not closed-ended. It's asking, okay, rate how does this statement reflect to you? So on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being lowest, 5 being highest, how do you feel about this statement? Neither. So then
Oh,
then you're giving a value to it, not just a yes or no. Same way when you do the interview, it has to be generating some content that will give you some insight. Sometimes, and this happened to me also, because when I did my interviews, there were certain things that came out little bit more than what I actually expected. So I found an area that can be used for future research. And I commented about that. I said that this was not something that was part of my study. However, this word popped out several times, which is something that can relate to a particular gender, right? So with that finding, I'm saying that this may be something that can have a further impact on leadership or be an outcome of coaching. So then I said, this is an area for future study. So you can only find out things like that if you allow the person to speak a bit about the question. Otherwise, if you're going to ask a particular question and expect a particular answer, it's not going to help you. Is that clear? The
okay. Yeah.
coding you do later. Don't do it at the time of the interview. Right?
All right.
Only thing is you might when you're listening to the person give the answer, you might actually understand, hey, this relates to my variable. Make a note of those. Make a note of those. Okay?
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
All right. So another thing about the discussion part, um, a good discussion will link three things together. Okay? And I have said this before, and I'm saying it again because at this point it's really important that you do this, because this is the chapter that is the real meat and the sort of the real meat of your dissertation. A really good discussion always centers around three things: the data that you have found, because that is new; the literature, which is the foundation, okay? And the third thing is your conceptual framework. This is what you use to bridge the two. Your conceptual framework is actually that bridge that you built. Here was the past. My framework is going to take me to the future state. And through that, now I have gathered this data and now you're putting it together. So always remember that that part is important. How you, and I like to use this word because this is something that my supervisor shared with me. Okay, so I'll put it on the chat. So this is the word that you have to remember. Synthesize. What you're doing, you're synthesizing. Synthesize is a process where you put things together, you add different elements and you synthesize it. You're making something out of it, right? So that's exactly what you have to do in this part. Your discussion needs to have that synthesizing of those three elements: your literature, your data, and your conceptual framework, right? So as you discuss, refer back to the literature. Okay, this finding from the quantitative or from the qualitative, what does the literature say about it? Is this supporting the literature? Does the findings support literature? Or your findings, does it say something different to what literature has said? Okay. Um, Maybe some of the data that you generate will be supporting part of the variables, maybe some variables no. So then you have something that you can discuss there. All right. So that discussion part is how you really present it. Okay. And remember, it's not about writing the paragraph and at the very end just putting the literature reference. Don't do that. I have seen many students try that, where they just write the paragraph. They say, okay, this is about the data, and then at the very end they just put a parenthesis and put the literature reference. That's not it. That's not a discussion. That is just trying to say that, okay, this is what I found, and you go and read about this. No, what you need to say is, um, say for example, if I quote somebody, according to Maslow, and you put the year 1950 something, um, and you talk about the Maslow's theory, you have the one level is self-actualization. You can relate something to that about that digital literacy I was saying. See, you're not dependent on anybody, you're independent now. And that you have that knowledge, it helps you actually do this on your own. So now you're able to really reach that level of self-actualization where you are now reaching the highest point for yourself. You know, so you refer to that and you say, as per Maslow's, and then self-actualization. So you're talking about Maslow's theory, and then you say, um, A2 said this in response to question 3. And then when you say question 3, you put this. And according to the uh, according to the conceptual framework presented, chapter 2 dot whatever, this directly supports the impact variable 1, or you can say variable 1.2 has on dependent variable this. So you link it like that nicely. All right. So your sentences have to bring that synthesizing of all this. On the other hand, you can say another person gave a different response. A5 responded like this, which is contradicting to what was said by Maslow. And you could say that the survey question number this and refer to the appendix for the survey. Or you can refer to that particular table also where you say this. The median value for this question was this, which supports this. All right. So you link everything together when you're writing. I know it sounds difficult, but if you really look at the connections that are building when you look at the data, that's why this data analysis is important. You need to look at the connections it's building between the quantitative and the qualitative. All right. And if you do that, then the conversation will automatically appear for you, and you will be writing about it in a way that um, it's giving value to what you're saying. Okay, is that clear?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So my advice to all of you is that, and I will stop sharing my screen and share with you one of my reports so that let me just show you one. Minute, I'll just go to the relevant chapter. Yeah, I think I can show you this one. This is a good one to show. Yeah. Okay, here we go. This is something that was shared by the institute with us as a sample report. So there are no names given, and I'm only sharing. But this is not on IBF; it's a business psychology one. But I'm just going to show you quickly what I mean by. Now you can see here how the data is presented. For me, I have a problem here. If you look at female and male, it's shown in yellow. And then again, here, your male and female, it's two different colors, right? And then you see female and male here, it's in that cyan magenta color. This would have been better consistent if this cyan magenta was used throughout. So here also this can be shown like this. I know that this is maybe this is something that has been taken from some report, right? But this is, see, this is a survey, salary survey, and that's why these colors are like that. So if it is from a report like that, then you are mentioning this, it's all right. But if you are drawing the graphs and tables like this, then be consistent with the coloring. All right, then you have a bar chart like this. Okay. Now, if you look at the analysis, okay, let me show you some of the things, how you analyze data. So this is a way of showing it. Now, they are calling these people leaders. So the 5 people that were interviewed, L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, right? And here, if you look at a qualitative, here is how they have done that further analysis. So these were the survey questions, okay? Here's one way of doing it. So here they have used a word cloud. This is a bit complicated using a word cloud. It takes some time also. What you need to do is each person's content. That means you have the transcript of every interview you do, the 5 interviews or the 4 interviews that you do. Each one of those you put into a word cloud generator. It'll analyze the content and give you a map like this. You know, we use this when we do a Kahoot or say one of those fun games where you can generate a word cloud like a what do you use this? Actually, I only use Kahoot, so I know that most like a Slido or something like that, or a Mentimeter. You can generate a cloud, and in that it will give the most frequently said word in that person's content. So then you can identify those words like that. Okay, like this in another person. Here you get the high functioning words there. Only thing is, some of these words can be just random filler. So those will come smaller like this, but the more important words, if they are generated by through the questions properly, you will see something like this. Then you go to a second level of analyzing it by putting that frequency. So you can say high, medium, low frequency words, and then map those words. Somebody, first interviewee had these words as high frequency and these words as low frequency. And then when you do that, you show a relationship between that word and the particular question that was asked. So you're mapping the two together. Okay. And then in your writing, when you analyze it, here is another way. You can see here that this person mentioned empathy. Now, here I would recommend you to, if you're quoting a particular sentence or a word that one of the interviewees said, put it in as italics, that it will stand out from the rest of the paragraph. Okay. And see, in the discussion part, now they're highlighting those words. So here are the words that are coming out strong from the people that were interviewed across the 5 people. So this is something that emerged as a critical thing. So you can see how then you link all those things. All right. Quantitative data, you can see how quantitative data is presented then here. Okay. You can say how many people, composition was this much, 61% and 39%. Actual numbers you give here, the number of people. Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Jani.
Small thing. I just wonder, what do you try to ascertain bringing those words into the research? I mean,
So
here you
that is
there
how
you
you analyze qualitative.
mentioned.
That is how you analyze qualitative. Qualitative is, it's quantitative is very simple. You ask a question and you get a data value, data point, a 1 to 5 scale or a Likert scale. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. There's a range. So you get the values like that. When you are conducting an interview, you don't get data points like that. You have to interpret from what the person is saying. That is conveyed through words. You can actually see even a bodily shift. If somebody doesn't agree with say, now if you're doing about credit analysis and you're talking about say following regulations, and when you ask that particular question, and how far have the regulations have an impact on your credit approvals, and that person, they do a chuck and they, Pisubang, and they say something like that, you can actually dig into that and ask, okay, I noticed that your body is shifted and you sort of had a very, what was that? What does that mean? Don't put a word into their mouth and say it looked negative or it looked like you don't care. Just ask, what was that body shift that I observed? What does that mean to you? And then they get the person to relate that. Then you say, look, I feel it's very strict, it's too controlling, and it's preventing me from getting these the you know looking at credit in a way that is more objective, because it's subject to all these conditions. And now here comes the real reasoning. You get what I'm saying now?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let's say that person has done a body shift or like some gave me a gesture or something, and I found that he's giving a negative this thing vibe, right, on that particular question. So my question is, how do you put that into a
So you can
law?
say that, like, for example, for this question, here's how different people responded. And out of that, you can then say, the author noticed A3 having a body shift when asked this question. On further inquiry, this was the response was, and then you give those words, controlling, too strict, and you put those words in. So then it relates to how this has an adverse impact on the credit approval. Tight regulations. So that's how you understand it then. You understand that?
Yeah. So they
Tell
are
me that.
basically, we don't try to like get a no, I don't want to say we can't, of course, we can't, I mean, yeah, we can't quantify it by any.
You can't.
Yeah,
You can't quantify it. You can relate it. So in qualitative analysis, what we are doing is we are analyzing the word content and identifying a pattern. Pattern ekak identify karna. That is what we are doing. So you see a word and you relate it to a pattern. And that pattern, if many people are saying the same thing, that relates to one of the variables. So if your one of the variables is the impact of regulations on credit decision, right?
yeah.
And you can say that the impact of regulation, it could be strict regulations or looser regulations. What is that impact then? And so then you're finding that out from when you interview the people, how they respond. So a person is responding, say, no, I believe that regulations are important because it helps keep us in track. So then there's a positive correlation. And it improves my credit because I know that I have to look at these things. So then there's a positive correlation between the two, the quality of credit and tighter regulations. One person can say like that. Then another person will say, no, it's actually preventing my credit because there are too many regulations. You see?
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's not
So
data numbers. I'll give you another example, right? Maybe if this is not that clear to you. Now this is all quantitative surveys, right?
yeah.
See,
So I
these
have
are very
not done
simple
any
ones,
qualitative. Yeah, that's right.
right? So this part is the quantitative one. I'll show you. I'll give you an example of how I did it. But the thing is, you can't go by say what somebody else did. You have to find your own way of showing it, because what one
So
person did will not be maybe the same for you.
so there's no way for us to measure it at the end of the day,
No,
isn't it?
there is. So that is where you need to, that's the measurement. You're measuring it, meaning you're not measuring it for a data value. You're measuring it for we call this a
Just
contextual
can you
value.
show me? Yeah, can you show me that some report or anything that they have put this data? I mean, into like so we basically don't put any graph or anything. Just my question is, how do you show it to the reader? I mean,
Let me show you. That's why I said you use tables, you use words. You're putting sentences, you're capturing. When I say verbatim means වචන කියපු විදියටම දානවා. You put it as let me show you. I thought this was discussed with you in your workshop එකේ කරේ නැද්ද මේවා? Now here, you can see my screen?
yeah.
Okay, so see now my chapter introduction is just this number of words. And then I'm going into the analysis of the qualitative. This is what I'm saying, how you summarize the findings. So here is my question. I'm saying that all these summaries are what I have done with people who, and the people who I've interviewed, I have already mentioned in my methodology chapter, table 3.1. And it's based on my question guide, which I have given in Annexure 5. My question guide, right? So here is the first question. This is how I'm referencing the questions. If you look at my Annexure 5, it will show the questions are numbered like this: A, B, C. In A, I have, in B, I have B1A, B12, sorry, B1B, B1C, like that. I might have a B2A and a B2B, like that. I have several questions. So how I have asked the question, I have summarized the question. I'm not putting the full question. I'm just saying, what is this question relating to? Here are the people. These are the different respondents. This is what they said about it. So you give the response like this. Okay?
Okay.
This is one way. So that's why I said first show it in a table. Question, respondents, and what they gave as a response. Then for each question, you know how the different people responded. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So that's one way of showing the data. So like that, I have submitted all the questions. See, you can see B3B, B3A, each of those questions as per my Annexure 5. And then what are the responses that each person gave for the question? Simple. Don't put a paragraph. You're putting a one-liner that sort of summarizes what that person said for this question. That you have to take from the transcript. Then when I did that, I used word clouds, right? I used a word cloud. A word cloud is where I put that person's whole interview into this word cloud generator, and these are the words that came out. So when I see these words, is there a pattern? So then I have again put, like I said, that high, medium, low. In this, these are the high volume of words said. Say, for example, I'm giving a very simple example. Somebody says people. People is said 25 times during the interview. All right. Because of that, I have said that people is a high value, high frequency word for this person, A1. People is also a high value word for A2. That means high frequency. So I list all these words, like say for somebody, communication here is a high frequency word. It's not there for other people. Here, communicate again. This person, A4, is saying communicate, high. This one is also saying communication. This one is also saying communication. Then that comes out as strong. Okay. And then when you map the words, I used a different frame. This is a diagram I used. Don't go by my diagram because this is how my variables are. All right. And I tell what are the, then I'm saying there's a pattern. What are the patterns that I'm observing? People mentioning something like this. There's a pattern in what they say. They are using these common words. Okay. So what are those words that are common? That's a pattern. That is what you call a pattern. අර නිකම් මෝස්තරයක pattern එක identify කරනවා වගේ තමයි. මේ කියපු word jumble එකෙන් is there a common pattern? Common words that are said by multiple people. Then it's a pattern. For this question, the pattern is this is the response. For this question, there's a different pattern, a different set of responses with common words. So when you put those in, right, then you can identify according to these are my variables. Okay. So don't go by this. If you have your conceptual framework, how do these words link up to that particular variable? Right. So I drew this by putting my variables, my 3 variables and the sub variables, right? So you will have your independent variables, you will have your dependent variables. These are my independent variables. From these independent variables, here are how these words connect. Okay. Then I did my quantitative analysis. So here you can see I'm presenting the data in many forms. Here I have a bar chart and I'm using the gender colors like this so that it is very easy to relate to. And then I'm using a table to give the population, the distribution of population. right? So female and male, number of years service, and so things that I can relate easily here. Number of years service, and what is the median, what is the average. So I'm showing the distribution of the people.
So in my case, I can like use the designation and the experience.
Yeah. That's what now. When you did your methodology chapter 3, you are saying that you're going to use the survey to all these people. Who are those people? They are going to be people working in the bank at different levels. So you say that it is going to this number of people, this number of people. Then you're showing that data here. Here are the people that responded, right? So are they in what grade? Or see, here I'm showing promotions. Yeah, so you can do different types of data. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how you show it. Then when you're showing the quantitative survey, now here what I have done is, this is my first variable, independent variable. There are 4 questions for that. I'm putting all 4 questions in one chart like this. So that's how you show the data. I'm showing it like this. You don't have to go by this. You can show it in a different way, right? And then when you come to the analysis part, let me show you that. This is where it is important to use the literature. Everything is based on literature here. I am saying what my literature said. Okay, this is what it's all about. So now here's my conversation, right? I'm referring my conceptual framework. I'm referring to my variables, and I'm referring to literature. So everywhere I made it a point to link everything together. Now here I'm saying, in this in-depth interview, according to this table where I've showed the responses, and this is how literature talks about it, right? And how it is supported by what was said. And this is where I'm saying verbatim comments. So this verbatim comment supports what was said. I'm putting it in italics, exactly what the person said. How does this connect to the literature? How does it connect to the data that I have found in the quantitative? You see how it is?
Yeah. Got it.
All right. Every place I am linking it together. So here I have put literature. With that literature, I am identifying certain things. How does another literature article talk about that? Or is there a different definition? Or how does it come together? And then I'm referring to the data in the quantitative. Okay, in the quantitative, I'm saying that the data finding from this supports the theory. There was a high rating here. I don't have to give the exact values. I can do that also. I can say a median value of this relates to this, or correlation coefficient of this relates to this, or there's a high correlation of this much, right? And then you just bring in that conversation like this. So that's why I say you're not measuring it in terms of a number. You're measuring it in terms of that, how what the person says, how they are reflecting on it, the impact it has brought. So that is the pattern that you identify. So the patterns are in these words. I'm using words that they said. Okay. When a phrase like this is said, it gives a certain understanding about what you asked as a question and how it relates to that variable. Okay. So this is how you write it. Always remember, when you're quoting things said by one of the interviewees, put it in italics like this. You don't have to put the full thing. I am putting parts of the sentence like this, and I use dots to connect it. 3 dots, because I'm showing only the salient parts. The filler words and the other connecting parts I'm not using. I'm just showing the exact parts of the sentence that have a relation to what was said. Okay. So all of this is done in that system, right? Where you can see right throughout, I am referring to theories, I'm referring to models, I'm referring to literature, I'm referring to say now this is actually a framework or a competency framework. So you can here see I'm referring to literature. Then I'm again referring to what was in the data. So like that, you keep on linking everything and you discuss it. That's how a good discussion analysis comes about. Okay.
Yep, correct.
All right. Okay. So that's about it for me to share today. So now my expectation is actually today, now we are behind a bit because chapter 3, have you submitted?
Yeah, methodology.
Yeah, that is due today. So now you have time 2 weeks to submit chapter 4, which means if you haven't done the data collection and the interviews, you need to complete that now so that you can analyze it and write about it. You have 2 weeks to write. Okay, this takes time. This writing part takes time because you need to find meaning. You have to understand this for yourself. There has to be a way that you can relate this information. So you are going to try. It will be a little bit of trial and error also for you. Okay, so that is why I'm saying this takes time. Hence, please focus on this now itself. All right. Okay. Any questions, Janit? I'll try to
All good.
catch up with Malisha and Chalani. I'm not sure what the situation is, so in the I need your support on that. But the recording is available, and if you need to find out anything, you can find it out asking me questions on the chat, so that everybody will also benefit from that. All right. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. All okay. Indivari, you're there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Indivari, can you be online? Okay, Jani, then thank you very much. All the best.
On the right. Thank you.
Using the
Okay.
right type is not active corners. Then we have that's what. So prioritize experiment is surgical you can apply to a problem target.
Indivari, can you call me?
Yes, sir. I'll call you.
Okay.
Some promises